Indi Madekwana, President Ramaphosa. I don't know if you ever got to see it, but a few months ago, I sent you a recording, an open message. I was blowing off steam regarding your Minister of Police that came to our town and paraded along the beach, empty beach, but with 30 uniformed and heavily armed policemen with him. He arrested the only two people on the water, two international kite surfers. In good faith, I asked if he would not come and have a cup of tea or coffee with me. I wanted to just put my view to him as a common person on the lockdowns and the effect of the lockdowns. Well, he marched up the beach, declined my invitation, stood at our gate, and proceeded to lecture me on tourism and other things, surrounded by his armed policemen. President Ramaphosa, I would very much ask that you somehow find the time to listen to a series of messages I'm going to give, same time every weeknight for the next few nights. Just putting my heart and case to you. There'll be a maximum of about 7 minutes long. And people may ask, well, what right do I have to ask that of you? And I've got no right. I've got no qualifications. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a normal man in the street. But like you, President Ramaphosa, and millions of South Africans, I have common sense. And our common sense tells us that something is terribly wrong with the way COVID is being handled, not only here in South Africa, but worldwide. But I'm going to talk to you and ask questions about our country in particular. I'm doing this because I believe that you are surrounded by advisors, many of them highly qualified, everybody with biases, and all of us have our biases, many of them with conflicts of interest, ideological interests, political interests, financial, economic interests. Many of them, as we all know, with corrupt conflicts of interest. My name is Mark Ambler, my lovely wife, Juanita. We live in Langebaan, very blessed to stay in a little town up the west coast. We're in the tourist industry, so there's my conflict of interest. But I'm very grateful to the Lord that we have been affected, but certainly not nearly as much as many, many people in our industry and in the restaurant and hospitality industry in general. I also want to tell you that we love our country. We're very grateful to be South Africans. We're very grateful to be part of the African continent. I'm very proud of the history of fighting for freedom of our country. Much of the Boer history and fighting against the domination of the British. Much of the resistance movement, fighting against white domination in our country. And as a patriotic South African, I'm just trying to put a case to you to listen to other views. And I'm going to start with just one issue tonight, and over the next few nights deal with some other issues. But and firstly, I want to say, I understand that COVID is a terrible virus. We have very many friends normally that are in high risk groups that have been severely ill from COVID. But the first issue I want to raise with you has to do with the statistics, the COVID statistics. Today, I looked on the News 24 COVID dashboard, and it tells us that to date, from the beginning of this pandemic, about 2.5 million cases have been detected. But of course, we know that that figure is nonsense. it is useless. And let me tell you why that 2.5 million figure is useless. Well, in February of this year, our South African National Blood Services, they announced that they had done an analysis of blood donors' blood, and they were looking for antibodies in that blood. Antibodies indicate, COVID antibodies, indicating that over the course of this pandemic, over the previous year, people have actually had the virus. And they said that over 50% of South Africans have been infected with the virus over that period of about a year. Around about the same time, Adrian Gore, the CEO of Discovery Health, made the same announcement based upon their research and analysis. More than 50%, and that was back in February. Imagine what it is now. Just a couple of days ago, my wife and I, we went to a clinic to go and have our own antibody test done. We came up negative, but I asked the very sweet nursing sister, those that were coming to her for antibody testing, more or less how many are coming up positive, indicating that they have had the virus over the past 18 months or so. And she said more than 50% as well, more than half. And so the idea that only 2.5 million cases are out there is nonsense. It's probably more like 35 million, 40 million, maybe 45 million people have had the COVID virus, many of them unaware of it. And so what can we deduce, and what questions come to mind about this? Well, firstly, that the lockdown measures that have cost our economy billions and billions of rand, have cost hundreds of thousands of jobs, thousands of businesses have closed, have not been effective. They're not working. One of your ministers said the other day, we're not Germany. And I'll say in relationship to COVID as well, we're not Germany. What works in Germany doesn't work here. The lockdown measures have not been effective. The second observation I'd like to make is that these antibodies that are maybe in 60, 70% of the population now, that arise from our natural immune system when it is attacked by the virus, are there to provide a degree of immunity. And in the history of virology, it's known that most of these antibodies from viruses that we're exposed to remain with us throughout our lives. How strong that immunity is, how long it lasts for COVID in particular, and now, of course, for the variants, we don't know. But you know, we don't know how long the vaccine immunity lasts either. In fact, many countries are busy rolling out booster shots as the COVID Delta variant leaks through the vaccine. Surely we should be doing research, asking questions about the degree of immunity that is in our population already, and whether it's necessary to be spending the billions and billions and billions of rand that our country cannot afford. We're borrowing to do it as usual, whether we can afford to do that. Where's the research? And don't wait on the pharmaceutical medical companies to do it. They've got far too much to lose. We need to give money to a reliable organization without conflicts of interest to do that research about whether vaccines are necessary. And I'm just going to finish and say that I have been recording this message, and I'll be sending out the link, and it's on my YouTube channel, Mark Ambler. Just Google for it, I'll put it on there. And I hope and pray as I have been praying for you, and we've watched every speech you've made over the last 18 months or so. We've prayed for you. Many of our Christian friends are praying for you. And I pray that you might find time in your incredibly busy schedule to have a look at some of these presentations that I'm going to make, or at least to watch the YouTube recording. President Ramaphosa, thank you. Nkosi sikelele, i-Afrika.